For most of history, the role of First Lady has been somewhat ceremonial. A First Lady has always been a figurehead, a host at state dinners, and a supporter of charities. But in most countries, like the US, she holds no real power, at least officially. But that's how it always looks from the outside. However, behind closed doors, some First Ladies became something far more influential. Gatekeepers, advisors, even rulers in all but name. When presidents fell ill, when dictators grew paranoid, or when power vacuums appeared, these women stepped in. Some protected their husbands, some controlled them, and some reshaped entire nations. Today we go back in time to a time when these First Ladies, quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, ran their countries. Number 1. The Hidden Presidency, Edith Wilson. In 1919, the United States faced a constitutional crisis. President Woodrow Wilson had suffered a massive stroke. This left him partially paralyzed, mentally exhausted, and unable to perform many of his duties. But at the time, American public had not fully learned the truth. Instead, one person stepped forward to control the flow of power: his wife, Edith. Officially, she described her role as stewardship. However, unofficially, she had become the gatekeeper to the presidency. Cabinet members rarely saw the president. Congress had almost zero access. Even Vice President, the person who was supposed to step in at such a time, Thomas R. Marshall, was kept in the dark. Every presidential or even confidential document meant for the president passed through Edith first. And it didn't stop there. Every meeting request and every political decision had to go through her. And so, for 17 months, Edith decided what information reached the president and what never did. The United States had a president, but in his tragedy, we unofficially got our first female president. Number 2. The Gatekeeper of the White House, Nancy Reagan. Unlike Edith Wilson, Nancy Reagan never formally stepped into the machinery of government, but she controlled something just as important: access. After the 1981 assassination attempt on President Ronald Reagan, Nancy Reagan became fiercely protective of her husband, and from that point onwards, no one reached the president without going through her. If she distrusted you for even a second, you would often find yourself removed from power. One of the most famous examples was Donald Reagan, who lost his job after clashes with the First Lady. But this First Lady's influence didn't stop there. Behind the scenes, she regularly consulted astrologer Joan Quigley and sought her opinion on nearly everything that involved the president's schedule. Important events, press conferences, travel plans, and any other schedule were on most occasions arranged according to astrological advice. To critics, it seemed bizarre. How could an entire presidential schedule be controlled by an astrologer's word? Well, to Nancy Reagan, it had to be done, all in an effort to protect her husband. Number 3. The Architect of Chaos, Jiang Qing. If Edith Wilson and Nancy Reagan quietly shaped influence, well, the First Lady to Mao Zedong, Jiang Qing, wielded it like a weapon. Jiang Qing rose to power during one of the most chaotic periods in Chinese history, the Cultural Revolution. As Mao aged and withdrew from daily politics, Jiang Qing stepped forward. She became the leading figure of the infamous Gang of Four. Together, they launched purges across China. Political rivals were arrested, intellectuals were persecuted, art, education, and culture were reshaped to match revolutionary ideology. And in all this, Jiang Qing justified her actions with chilling simplicity. "I was Chairman Mao's dog," she once said. "Whoever he told me to bite, I bit." After Mao Zedong died in 1976, Jiang Qing quickly lost her protection. Within weeks, she and the Gang of Four were arrested. At her 1980 trial for crimes during the Cultural Revolution, Jiang Qing showed no regret, insisting she had only followed Mao's orders, famously declaring she was Chairman Mao's dog. She was sentenced to death, but the punishment was reduced to life in prison. Years later, suffering from illness and isolation, Jiang Qing ended her life in 1991, closing the dramatic rise and fall of one of China's most controversial political figures. Number 4. The co-dictator, Elena Ceausescu. In communist Romania, power was shared between two people, dictator Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife, Elena. Officially, Elena held the title of First Deputy Prime Minister. However, unofficially, she was often considered the second most powerful person in the country. As her husband grew increasingly paranoid, he trusted fewer and fewer people. And eventually, only one voice truly mattered: hers. Elena controlled major scientific institutions, political organizations, and cultural policy. She also developed a reputation for ruthlessness. Government insiders feared her temper, and many believed that some of Romania's harshest economic decisions came directly from her influence. To outsiders, Nicolae Ceausescu ruled Romania. Inside the government, it was clear there were two rulers. Number 5. The reluctant president, Isabel Perón. In 1974, Argentina experienced an unprecedented moment. President Juan Perón died in office. His vice president automatically became the new leader, but his vice president was also his wife, Isabel Perón. That made her the first female president in world history. Yet despite the title, real power often lay elsewhere. Her husband's powerful advisor, José López Rega, exerted enormous influence over the government. Through Isabel, he directed policy and political decisions. Argentina entered a period of economic instability and political violence. And within 2 years, Isabel Perón's presidency ended in a military coup. Her rise to power had been historic, but her control over that power remained deeply contested. History often remembers presidents, kings, and dictators, but power doesn't always sit on the throne. Sometimes it stands beside it, behind the scenes, controlling access, or quietly steering the course of a nation. These women were never elected to lead, yet at critical moments in history, they did.